We used to go to a Presbyterian church in Puerto Rico. So we did like a Google search and we found Presbyterian church here, CPC. This church was doing everything based on the word, and that's what I liked so much.
We came here because we were looking for a church. Right away, Pastor Tracy introduced us. He talked to me a little bit about things that we were interested in, and at the time we had talked about being involved with youth ministry at one time. He just hooked us in. He just kind of like plugged us in right away.
I actually grew up in this church. I came with my grandmother when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. So when we were looking for a church home again, this was almost kind of the natural choice for us because this was where I was raised up.
The church that I originally grew up in, it was very kind of similar to this church, and it resonated for me,
We are here alone. Our family is in Puerto Rico. So it is nice to know that we can count on other people.
In every church that I go, I sing because I like to sing to God. So that have been important part for my spiritual growth in the church since I start singing in the first church that I went.
My thing is the teaching and how charitable the church is. Like, the church is really about outreach and trying to help people, and there's not a focus on just like being inside of the building, but getting out and trying to reach people at their lowest point. So that's what I love about this church.
Not just the missions, but the way we go about missions. It's not CPC's mission, it's the mission that God has given the individuals that are here.
Have a women's ministry. Nothing that I thought I would ever have a women's ministry about. I mean, it's an abortion healing ministry, and that's my women's ministry.
The differences is part of the God's creation, and we need to accept our difference, and that is part of the blessing that God provides to us. So I think this church has much to do out there, and we just started to do it.
I think that God is going to use the healing and the work that we're doing as our small congregation and individually to then be able to take that and go into the community and have an impact. Like, I believe that He's going to use this church during this time to have an impact.
Trying to get a better handle on racial relationships is great, but I also think that keeping the gospel in the middle of it reminds us that we are all children of God. And that is the action that we have to perform to change the way things are happening today, to change people who are minimalized because of skin color, to change the attitude of other people, and to bring everybody together under the umbrella of the gospel as part of the family of God.
I will, because I think in order for us to fulfill God's vision of growing His kingdom, like the church, there's things that have to physically be done with our building and our space to be able to do that.
Being part of this capital campaign means that we are giving back to God what He has gave us already, because the things that we have, those things are not ours.
First off, we love this church, and we know that there's needs that this church has, needs that we've seen and needs that we actually need ourselves. It's just things need to be maintained. I think that God has a job to do here, and that in order to do that job, certain things need to be available.
Because giving back to God is not only about giving money. It's about obedience. It's about believing Him. Believe that He will provide to you. And when you give back, you will see the difference in your life, because you are not relying in your own efforts. You are relying on God.
But I think God is the whole thing that's making this happen. And why wouldn't you want to be involved in that? Why wouldn't you want to be involved in God's work? Why wouldn't you want to be involved in seeing God make changes in people and in buildings and in communities?
Because there's strength in numbers. For me, there's strength in numbers. You know, when people come together and share the load, you know, it helps to make it a better process to get things done.